Peace and blessings. Happy Monday. Welcome back to Monday Message. It's Dharma Shakti here, your host for your weekly dose of daily wisdom, quotes and thoughts and perspectives to help you get through the life that you are walking. I have a quote today. I overheard it in a conversation with a friend. She got it as some advice in her business coaching. And I just thought that is a really good little quote there. I'm going to use that for our Monday message. So we were talking in the context of business, but for me, my brain was looking at how to apply it at life. And so the saying is, you have to inspect what you expect. You have to inspect what you expect. So we have a lot of expectations in life, whether we are aware of it or not. And usually we know that we have expectations when we are disappointed. And we want to just blame other people and why we're upset and disappointed and feel let down or betrayed or hurt or whatever. And a lot of it in part is due to expectation. And I'm not saying that expectation is something you should never have. Expectation is complicated, right? But there are certain things that we have expectations for that we should really question. And so I love this statement, inspect what you expect. So all it's saying is take a moment to be introspective about what am I expecting from this situation, and is that reasonable? What am I expecting from this situation? Is it reasonable for me to expect that? Like if somebody told me, hey, I'm going to meet you at a certain time and we set a date, we both put in our calendars and I get on the call and they're not there, I can say that's a reasonable expectation that I had because that person made a commitment, right? There can be so much tied into that. That's just like a simple analogy. But let's just say, you were going to go meet up with some friends and you had this big expectation in your mind about what it was going to be. And the plans get changed or something and you're super distraught about it. You're upset, you're frustrated, you're loud about it, or you're quiet about it, whether it's an external or internal upsetness. We had an expectation that wasn't met. And so therefore we are upset. And so what I'm asking, what this quote is saying, is to inspect what you expect. So inspect it, like just look at it and be curious, like, is it reasonable that I expect to get this thing out of this relationship or this friendship or this job opportunity? Is it reasonable for me to expect, my partner to do A, B, C, and D for me? Is that a reasonable expectation, or do I have expectations that of course are unreasonable, or why do I have these expectations and are they even healthy for me? The tricky part is our mind, our rational mind, our logical mind is super good at rationalizing why we are right about whatever it is that we feel like we need to be right about. And so with expectations, that happens a lot. We feel like, well, it's natural that I would expect that. Okay, it's a natural human process that you may expect something. But when we step back into this aspect of self, what we call the Atma or the Jiva, this part of the soul where we're trying to be not so attached. And that really has to happen from the place of the self of wisdom, the true self, not the thinking ego mind self that just wants to be happy and doesn't want to feel pain. Right? That's the human self. We don't want to feel pain. We just are chasing happiness. And so if it's happy, it's good. If it's pain, it's bad. But when we can kind of step out of that box a little bit and step into a bigger picture of who we are beyond our humanness, we have an ability to be unattached, right? Like, do we get attached that it's not a sunny day outside because that's what we wanted, our expectation? Like this week, the weather was supposed to be super crazy hot. I was looking forward to it and it wasn't. I could have been bummed out about it all day, but I was like, well, this is the weather I get today. I was only bummed out because I had an expectation. Had I not known what the weather was going to be, I wouldn't have had an expectation. I just would have been happy with whatever was. Yeah. And so like life has its weather and, we don't know what we're going to get. And when we have these expectations, especially the unreasonable ones or the ones that are not healthy for us or the ones that are bigger and broader and larger than what we really need in our lives or deserve, or not deserve, but are ready to have. You know, like you can't go from being broke to being a millionaire overnight. Like you're not ready to manage that much money. That's why you're broke. You know, I'm just kidding. I'm sure there's complicated reasons, right? But you get what I'm saying? You can't just make these big jumps. So if you're not ready, if you have these big expectations, like, you know, let's say you're a new yoga teacher and you have these big expectations that you're going to go out and you're going to teach at a studio, and the studio is popular, so it's going to be great. And you have these big expectations, and yet you don't have the turnout that you liked. You know, maybe those expectations were a little too big for where you were at. You weren't ready to manage that kind of load. You got to be able to handle something smaller so that you can step into those bigger things. I hope this is making sense and landing for you, resonating for you. So just check, well, it's like that statement, right? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Inspect what you expect, right? Because then you will wreck yourself. If you're just living life full of expectations, my friend, I promise you are constantly going to be let down. Not because people suck, but just because people are people, and life is life, and life happens. And so the more we are attached to an expectation, the more distraught and disappointed and depressed or upset we are going to be when we don't get it. So it doesn't mean to not have any expectations, but we shouldn't be attached. It's like, well, I hope that this will go well, but I'm not putting on my expectations. Like if it doesn't go well, then that means I suck, or, you know, whatever I'm going to translate that to mean. If I put all this expectation on it, it's like putting all this pressure. And then when you don't meet that bar, of course you're going to be disappointed and let down and feel all kinds of feels. So what if we just inspected what we were expecting? Like, what do you expect out of life? What do you expect out of yourself? What do you expect out of your relationships and out of your work and your mission? What do you expect out of the adventure that you're looking for in life? Like, what are you expecting out of it? And some expectations are okay and normal and healthy and natural to have, but yet still we need to practice not being attached to them. Meaning, I'm going to give it a go. I'm hoping that this happens. And if it doesn't, that's okay. If it does, awesome. I'm going to give it a go anyways. If it doesn't work, I'll try something else, or I'll try it again. But it's when we have that expectation that we fall apart when that expectation isn't met. So I'm not saying that by inspecting your expectations, you're going to be able to unattach and unhook overnight. It's a process of self-reflection and noticing when your expectations are not being met and when those edges are being rubbed up against, and you're having feels, you're having emotions and these reactions to the fact that your expectations just simply weren't met. And it happens, and I'm not saying that it's fair or, you know, that like there's something wrong with you if you're disappointed because expectations weren't met. It's just a part of the human journey. I have expectations. I have to look at them all the time, and I have to realize when I'm upset about something, I can still look at and honor the entirety of the situation and everybody involved or other people involved and how they contributed. But I really got to look at what I contributed, and that includes what my expectations were, because that will dictate how I show up in the relationship, whatever it is, whether it's with work or with friends or family or career. I already said work. Okay, you're telling I'm a work-related person. Romantic relationships. This is a big one, right? In romantic relationships, like, what do you expect? And I'll just note this too, like, just because you expect something and it isn't met doesn't mean that you can't have that expectation. If you expect your partner to be monogamous, especially if they told you that they were going to be monogamous with you, and that expectation isn't met, it hurts. It's like, that is a normal part of life, is what I'm trying to say. But when we unhook from the clinging to, like, it was supposed to be this way, there's a clinging that we do, like a real grasping that happens when we have expectations. Like, it was supposed to be this way though. And we fall apart. Our whole world crumbles and we think God is out to get us when it doesn't go our way. And life is tricky when you're working in symbiosis or out of symbiosis with other human beings who also have their own expectations and may not know what yours are, or just may not be able to meet yours because your values are different. inspect what you expect. Take some time to just look at where your expectations are in your life and how you show up to them. And just start to pay attention, right? When you get disappointed, like, oh, but I was expecting you to do this. It doesn't mean you can't say something and hold someone accountable for a commitment that they made, right? You could still do that. We're still living life, right? Like there's the immediate reality and then there's ideal reality. And we have to blend them as we get better at them both. The immediate reality and the ideal reality. It takes a minute to merge those worlds together. Ideally, we would not be attached to anything, but the immediate reality is we're probably having expectations with everything. And so we're going to, ideally we don't have expectations and we aren't attached. And so we just like slowly we start to blend these worlds like a Venn diagram where they meet in the middle. And in the middle, there's a beautiful place where we can live it's more harmonious for us. Doesn't mean we don't end up in the outsides of that Venn diagram still in expectation and also completely unattached. But we want to find a way to just walk that middle path, as Buddha says. So it's not wrong to have expectations. I think it's a natural part of being a human being. And if you are a part of my world at all, you've heard me say this a million times, we are very human and we are having a human experience. We have to honor that side of us that is real and that exists. As far as it's our current present reality, it's real. We're going through it. But at the same time, if we can step back and recognize that there's a part of me that's bigger than that, and I can make choices that are bigger than my human choices. I can make choices that are from a more virtuous, more harmonious, more intelligent, more of a wisdom-based decision in my life with my expectations, rather than just functioning on automatic pilot of this crazy biochemistry we have going on with our nervous system and all the hormones, and then get all caught up in those expectations. So you can totally just be like, well, I'm just being human. I have human days too. But my friend, I'm hoping that you strive to be more than just this complicated human that you are, and recognize that you are a divine spirit that can transcend those things. You truly can. You don't have to be so disturbed by your humanness. It's still going to be there, because as long as you're in the body, your humanness is going to be there. But you start to function from a different place, and your human experience then becomes very different. And I would beg to say that it maybe almost becomes a spiritual experience. Right? Okay. Inspect what you expect. Just take a moment, and if you could just dial down your expectations a little bit. I'm not saying get rid of them. Just dial them down a little bit and just notice what happens. You might have a little bit more peace of mind because you're not so attached by other people's actions that you were hoping that they do. Because guess what? You cannot control anything that exists outside of you. And so if your expectations are all based on other people outside of you, you're going to live a very topsy-turvy life. And I don't want that for you. You deserve so much better. All right, so take some time, inspect what you expect. And I hope you're having a great Monday. I hope that you're blessed as much as you are a blessing to others. Remember to stay upful and to stay bright and keep shining that beautiful light. I'll see you next time, everybody. Peace out and bless up and namaste.